Not Daniel Smith. Sup friends, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in another episode of The Paint Show. And today we'll be looking at PWC Cobalt Blue ShinHan paint. As I promised you, we're gonna take a break from the Daniel Smith paints just because we've done so many of those. And for this one, I'm really excited because finally I want to share a different brand that I never reviewed before. I'm gonna have another one upcoming in the continuation of this week, okay? But for now, we're gonna look at this one, and the specific paint is Cobalt Blue. So just a word or two about how I got to the ShinHan brand. I was visiting a local art store and I got a free sample pack, and I really love those. I reviewed them. I'm gonna put a link in the description box. I had the Ultramarine Deep, I believe Permanent Red or Cadmium Red, something like that, and then the Van Dyke Brown, Permanent Red and Van Dyke Brown. I really love them. I also went ahead and bought a 3-tube set of this blue and another yellow and red. So I just wanted to show you these are the 3 paints that I got, and I already managed to do a painting with those, and you saw it probably for the most part. This one that I really loved. I think you can see it pretty well. So this one makes use of this specific blue, and I really love this result and the way it turned out. So so far these are great. Now what I like about these is that they're very affordable. They're relatively cheaper. If you go on Amazon, you can find, unfortunately not the single tubes, but you can find sets of 24 and 36, I believe, or 32. So a 32 set goes for $118. That's like $3.5 for a tube of 15 milliliters. Like this one, it's a large tube, so that's quite cost effective, which is a good thing. This particular color is a part of my favorite trio, which is having a cool blue and then warm red and warm yellow. And the painting that I just showed you is a part of this kind of combination as well, and that I really like. Now the PWC, and I talked about this in previous videos, is like the top line for watercolor paints in the ShinHan brand, and I want to read to you about it from their brochure, or from their website. So PWC Extra Fine Artist Watercolor is crafted with the highest quality pigments and the finest high-grade gum arabic to enhance the clarity and depth of color. Single pigments have been used whenever possible. So basically, and this is the main point, it's that this one's using single pigments, okay? The usage of mixed pigments have been limited. We're gonna see just in one moment. This is PB28, if I'm not mistaken, which is Cobalt Blue. In fact, yeah, PB28. Blah, 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 ideal for spread techniques. Okay, so total, that's a nice description. The total they have in PWC is 104 paints. And yeah, they say the transparency they mention light fastness. So what I want to do now is maybe take a look at this tube and talk a bit about what's in it, what it's composed of, and some characteristics. So first off, this, as I mentioned, is a 15 milliliter, quite a large tube. I love the large tubes. It just feels great to know that you have a lot of the paint. Now it's a Series D, which is almost the most expensive one. This particular one, it's Series D. The most expensive one is E. A is the cheapest, so for the common paints, for example, a burnt sienna is Series A, this one is D, so it's a little more expensive. Now it is funny, they have a cheaper version, Cobalt Blue Hue, which is made of PB29, which is ultramarine blue. So I don't know how they got to Cobalt using ultramarine, that's very interesting. But this one is PB28, which is Cobalt Blue. This one is a single pigment color, and I did make sure to get all 3, I believe, are single pigments. It was really important for me. So the light fastness is 3 out of 3 stars, which is great. This one is semi-transparent. About granulations, I'm not really sure. I don't think it granulates, but we're gonna test it out and take a look. And as I mentioned, I don't know, semi-transparent. Okay, you can see the square here. I hope you can see it. This empty square to right here. So that's semi-transparent. Not a lot of info on if this is staining or not, so we'll have to give this a try. From what I could gather so far, it's not staining because these were packed with pure pigment and you can barely see any difference. I really was able to clean those thoroughly, but we'll have to experiment with that. So what I want to do now is show you the paint, show you what it looks like, show you some dry and wet, and then some mixes. You already saw most of these mixes, so I'll be really brief with that, and then maybe have a quick painting demo just to show you what it looks like with different values, different levels of darknesses, and to actually test out its range of values, okay? And then we're going to look at the results and conclude this. Now I just want to mention before I move on to the demo, I will put affiliate links in the description box, so if you want to get this paint, there's only sets on Amazon unfortunately, so the 32 set, 24 set, if you get these using my link, I'm going to get a small commission, you pay the exact same price, that's great for me, so definitely check these out if you're interested in getting them. Relatively cheap, but you do have to make sure to go over all of the paints in the set, because if it's full of useless paints, then there's no real reason to, and I would encourage you to get the individual tubes in your local art store that hopefully has these. Okay, so anyway, let's change the angle and take a look at the paint, see what it looks like, and have a quick demo. So let me show you again what this paint looks like on the palette. So here it is here. Now, I want to give you a better look at the painting I showed you earlier, and you can see here what this blue looks like. Here you can see some darker representations of it. Here you can see another very pure and dark representation of it. I also did a few others with this one. This is also the same color combo, so you can see how you can create and achieve very different harmonies using the same pigments. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So anyway, let me show you what this looks like on the palette. And once I wet this, so what I noticed about the ShinHans is that they dry relatively, they dry up completely, but they do have some softness. So when I press it in, I don't know if you can see this, but when I press the brush inside, it does feel a bit rubbery, which I really like because it's not too dark. It's not too dark, it's not too soft, and then immediately it gets completely wet, and it's also not too hard that you have to really fight against it. So anyway, this is what it looks like on the palette. Let me zoom in and show you what it looks like on paper. So here we go. Let's just start painting with this one and see what the result is like. I love that blue, and I really think this could be a long-term paint that I will use a lot in the future. Cobalt is, funny enough, a paint that I didn't get to mess around with too much, generally speaking. I just didn't get to use as much Cobalt as I wanted to in the past. Probably because it didn't come in the Essentials set of Daniel Smith, and then I just didn't develop a habit of working with it. But with this, I'm really kind of completing that mission and finding out that this blue is turning to be one of my favorites. So you can see some variety in value. I wouldn't say this gets as dark as some other paints I've been using, but it does go pretty dark, and later on you'll see when mixed with the red here, the cadmium red deep, it's gonna turn really dark. So what I'm gonna do now is pre-wet some areas here, and just give you a quick wet in wet demo. So I'm making sure to thoroughly wet the paper, and I'm looking to the side of it at a slight angle like this to see the light reflected in it, so that I know how wet it is. This is a 600-gram paper, so it is pretty thirsty and it can soak up a lot of water. It's the Saunders Waterford. The brush I'm using is an emerald, a museum emerald. It's a bit hard to get on Amazon or online in general, but you can find it. If you try a bit, you can find it. I got it online. So anyway, now that's enough blue. Let's start putting it in there, into this wet area. I don't know if this, I don't really remember if this paint is really the type that spreads out a lot. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like this is relatively gentle in terms of the spread. This area is really wet here. So you can see the softness, and I really like it. I don't think it granulates. It's kind of, it's semi-transparent, so it's transparent and it doesn't granulate as much. So if this is what you like, then this is a good choice. I think I really like this one. I'm starting to, these kinds of paints make me see ultramarine in a negative light, because it makes ultramarine look like electricity, like a lot of people mention sometimes. I saw it online in many places. It's too red for my taste after seeing like a more clearer, pure blue like this one. So anyway, what I want to do now is zoom in a bit on this one once it's dry and show you what it looks like. I don't really, I can't really tell. I don't think it granulates. Let me zoom in for you. So this is what this paint looks like once dry. Honestly, I'm not sure exactly. I don't think it has that significant of a texture. It seems like it just settles onto the paper. Here's the still wet, wet and wet. I'm gonna add some darker areas to that now. So this is still quite wet, so I can play around with it, but it is starting to dry. And this is probably as dark as this one will get in this kind of a wet and wet test. Okay, so I think we can wrap this up. I'm gonna just do some dry brush strokes here, just for the fun of it. I like to do that with every new paint that I get. And I really love this paper. It's a cold pressed Saunders Waterford, so you can show the texture of the page through pretty easily. I'm actually using its backside, and its backside has a less significant of a texture, and you can still see it, and you can still produce it even with a relatively wet paint that I'm having now. Take a look at this paint. It's pretty wet, but I can still show some of the paper's texture, so that's pretty nice. So what I want to do now is show you some different mixes, and then we can do the demo. So I'll keep this as brief as possible because we already looked at some of these, but basically if I take the blue and I'll add perhaps a bit of red to it. So I'm gonna clean the brush really well, grab some of the red here, wet it again. This is kind of the mixture. I'm gonna just dump the red in here and show you what it may look like. The red is very dominant, so you have to put just a little bit of that. But you can see how dark it gets using this mixture. Usually when you mix two pigments like that together, you can achieve stronger and darker value than if you would just use the paint all on its own. So this is it in terms of the red. Now let me show you some yellow mixture. So if I take the yellow here, and you can see it's also pretty soft. I love that. So this is the yellow here. Beautiful yellow. I really love this one. It was a good decision, the cadmium red deep and cadmium yellow deep. Then I'm gonna add some blue to that, and this is the green we're getting here. This one won't get too dark. I'm gonna try and darken it a little more, but you really have to glaze with this kind of a combination if you want to get an interesting result. So this is probably almost as dark as this one will get, but still a beautiful combination. So this is it. Now let's do a really quick painting demo. Okay, so here's the result of playing around with the Cobalt Blue. I did use, of course, the yellow here, the cadmium yellow deep and the cadmium red deep. But basically I wanted this to be dominated by the blue. A really fun color. Here you can see some of the more pure mixtures. And I just really enjoy this one. So definitely this, I think, is going to be a staple of my palette in the future. Definitely check out this particular one if you're curious about the PWC. We've got everything else here. We've got this little wash, the dry wash, then the wet and wet, some dry brush here. Just really beautiful colors, and I love the way they handle. They feel really good. The PWC, all of the ones I tried so far felt really good. So anyway, this is it. Let's change the angle and wrap up this vid. So friends, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun working with this paint, and I think it's gonna be a favorite of mine. I just have that weird feeling, weird hunch. So I'm just gonna see how it goes, and I may just restock and buy more of these, the same color. When I find a combination that I like, I tend to stick to it. And this combination is beautiful in my opinion, and this blue could be used for many things. So anyway, this is it. I want to remind you, I will put links to purchase these paints in the description box to Amazon. Okay, so you get the sets there. And if you don't think you're going to use most of the paints in the set, then I recommend you just buy the individual tubes. But if you do want a large variety, I don't think that's really necessary. But if you do, so you can get the 24 set maybe, and it's about $4 per tube. It's like $90 for 24 tubes, and it's 15 milliliter. All of the tubes in the sets are big. They only make big tubes, so that's a big plus, and it's quite cheap for that kind of quality, I think. So anyway, this is it. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to check the previous episodes of The Paint Show if you haven't, or if this is the first one you stumble upon. I have tons of other videos in my channel that I encourage you to check out about painting demos and drawing demos and tutorials and exercises and tons of really cool stuff. So thanks again for watching. And this is it. I will see you again in another vid real soon.